Into the Catcher's Essential 6 training format. We're going to have 3 total body lifts here, 2 speed and agility quickness. Basically, what we want to start with is a check-in each day. The check-in has a bunch of questions here. How your sleep was, how your throwing arm feels, how your body feels. These are things that we tracked in professional baseball. Just making sure that the body is aligned. And it's really good for the player's reference. So if you're identifying these as low and you're actually visually seeing them, it's a good idea to drop 1 set on all exercises. But for exercises with 1 set, here we would do half the reps. We want to make some opportunity to recover our bodies, okay? So this is really important in terms of going into a training session. Before that, though, in the morning, we look at body weight. We want to make sure our athletes are hydrated. Overnight we lose body water, and especially if there is early morning practice or training or sometimes in tournament play, we want to be alerted of those things. And it's a good idea to try to have 2 bottles of water. We don't drink out of plastic as an aside. But 2 bottles of water worth in a stainless steel tumbler or something like that will help get us hydrated for the day. And then what we do after that is we're going to have our pre-throw arm care test. This would be if there's a hard throwing day, mound days, pull down days, velo days. This is really important not only for pitchers but catchers, position players. And after you do your activation, that's when you would test. Now, we have this on a Monday, and on the Mondays is a good idea as a position player having the arm care unit is to do a full exam for both the throwing arm and the glove arm. And the reason being is we have some players that have had shoulder issues with their swing, and we want to make sure that the left arm, if you're a right-handed hitter and a right-handed thrower, is in a good place. So we want to make sure that we are always aligning, if you can, on Mondays. If there's no games, usually it's after a Sunday or a weekend event, that we can do a full exam. On other days, it's a good idea either the day before or sometime midweek is to at least get an understanding of where the throwing arm is, and you can do quick exams. And especially those of you who had injuries, it's important to test more often. We want to do a fresh exam before and a post-exam after so that you can determine how much fatigue is coming out of the arm. And we're constantly looking for changes in shoulder balance, and that's why we need tests each week so that we can readjust programming. So getting after this, you would do your fresh exam. There is a dynamic component of the warm-up. There's some band-related stuff related to rotation that we want to be able to prime. It doesn't matter if you're a hitter or pitcher or position player. You have to be able to have hip and shoulder separation. We do things for that. Then you have your speed activation, and this is all video integrated with YouTube videos. And then what we want to do is have some preparation. Okay, if there's bullpens to be caught, or we're training the catcher to be really strong and mobile from the ground, we have lots of exercises to improve the strength in that posture of catching. Then you would do your throwing program schedule. Now, after this, if it's a hard throwing day, this is where I say to do your post-exam. And making sure you're checking to see how much has come out of your arm. Okay, that scales your throwing program, especially in the off season. Not to ramp it up without having the data to back it up. But we always do our throwing before we hit. Okay, and then there's some batting practice preparation, getting the body ready to hit. That's going to be listed in here. There's then a pre-lift warm-up routine. On days that we have a workout, we definitely don't want to just go in from hitting and not be prepped for our training. And then we have a total body workout with all our exercises here. We call it the Essential 6 because we keep this to 6 exercises. And then you get to your post-workout, and this is important too, is a scale, how hard you threw. And we look at reports quarterly with our individualized plans. We look at every 6 months, we're looking at where you've scaled your training to be able to make those adjustments. There's options for things in between. And so if you are, you threw today, you want to scale how hard was that throwing intensity today, and there's going to be buttons on the app that you can press in terms of scaling it. If you did speed training, or you hit today, or you lifted weights, this is scaling the difficulty. Our analysts look at that. We can adjust the intensity of the training. And at the end, to make it simple, we want to do a body weight at night. If we lose a lot of body water, you can see there's a lot of activities here. We want to make sure that we're replenishing our body water, and that you might be following the shake guide, which we encourage, and ensure that you're doing the right things nutritionally to make sure that you're hydrated. So this is just one of the days. This is Monday. I'm going to go to Tuesday, and we'll come back to Sunday. Tuesday, this beginning structure follows the same thing, but we have our speed, agility, quickness training. We never go into those things without a speed activation. And then we get into whatever our speed, agility, quickness is for that day. Now, we do recommend 2 times a week for catchers, but position players too. If you're playing another position outside of catching, to find an arm bike, we have suggestions for you on Amazon. They're not that expensive to put on a table, and do some circulation work for the throwing arm. And then we have a checkout list. The same thing that we talked about before is scaling the day. Wednesday, okay, is generally we have another catching prep for bullpens. And then we are having our training. And here too, if we're in season and you're not feeling, too strong that day, you can lower, again, as we're doing the checklist, to lower the amount of sets, okay? Or you could lower the reps as well. If it's a 1 set exercise, you can half those. It's a good idea, just as I get into it, where you have a day between the actual lifts so your body gets to recover. And then what we do here is we're getting into another speed, agility, quickness day. Okay. Now, if it's a practice day, you might be able to stick around and do a little bit of this afterwards while the body's warm. If not, we can move these days. And if you're playing a pretty heavy weekend schedule, at least if we can get in 2 lifts in the week, that would be great. But we have 3 listed. Okay, so the Friday will be another total body workout that we have here. And by all means, please feel like you can adjust this too, especially in season. In the off season, it's a little bit differently because we want to ramp up, we want to get strong, and then we may have more time in the summer. We do recommend doing the training after games, but if you are going to train during the day, and that's not uncommon in professional baseball or college baseball, it's important to have 6 hours if you can between your training and the game so that you can get a lot more nutrition in, you can recover. So if I got a 7 o'clock game, it's a good idea to have your workout done by noon. Okay, and then Saturday, this follows the same thing, but it's a recovery day. So this, you'll see, we're trying to put blood back into the throwing arm. And if it's, if you have a Sunday game, you can do some of this recovery work if you would like on the Sunday. So let me just go back to Sunday, because if this is Sunday here, we are doing all our tissue reset. Okay, and this would be great after a weekend of play. You can also push this over to other days. It's optional if you want to do it on other days after your training, but this is all focused on soft tissue care, working on trigger points, resetting tissue. I like the circulation here for the arm bike. Again, if you wanted to, you could take the recovery training that we have scheduled on Saturdays and put it on Sundays. The days of the week is just essentially how things are organized for most off-season training programs. However, in season, feel free to move this around. If you couldn't get to a lift on Monday and you have to push it to Tuesday, by all means, you can move these things around to fit your schedule, to make sure that you're competing at a very high level. And if Friday, you're a catcher, you're going to be competing heavy on Saturday, you could essentially skip the Friday's workout. You could put it in as a recovery day just to ensure that your arm has maximum recovery, especially for a catcher. You might be catching most of the games. So that's, one of the detailed recommendations that we have. Thanks.